Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The Albanese Labor government has now been in power for more than 2 years. And I just want to remind this place what Anthony Albanese said on the 17th of March 2022. A Labor government will lower the cost of living. A Labor government will deliver cheaper mortgages, cheaper rents. Well, Deputy Speaker, I've just heard from a number of those across the other side who have been espousing the economic credentials of this government. This government has failed in 2 key areas for Australians, and that is the cost of housing and the cost of everyday groceries. Under this government, for more than 2 years, we have seen real disposable income fall by 7.8%. Cost of housing and rent has risen by 15%. Food has risen by more than 11%. And while ever inflation remains so high, Deputy Speaker, interest rates must remain high. And why is it that inflation in our country is so high? Because when we compare with our trading partners, their inflation rates are coming down. We now have higher inflation than every other advanced economy. We are the only G10 nation where core inflation is accelerating. The United Kingdom and Canada, for example, have now got their inflation under control and interest rates have fallen as a result. And the inflation rate is clearly linked to this government's wasteful and irresponsible spending. $315 billion worth. That's 30,000. I hear the interjections from across the other side, but $30,000 spent for each and every Australian household. There's not a household in my electorate that feels $30,000 a year better off. The Reserve Bank last week specifically linked the continuation of high interest rates to homegrown inflation, that is spending by Labor federal and state governments. Australians, already heavily geared with large mortgages as well as business loans, continue, Deputy Speaker, to pay for Labor's overspending and its homegrown inflation. Already, as a result of Labor's incompetence on the economy, Australian mortgage holders, and there are 22,000 of them in my electorate, are paying $24,000 per year more on their average mortgage than they were under the coalition government. That means that they've paid $35,000 under this government that they did not pay under the previous government. So much for cheaper mortgages, Deputy Speaker. Inflation means that each month take-home pay of Australian workers buys less than it did the last month, and Australians know it. We've all in this place been back. We've been out in our electorates, and everybody is telling the same thing that they are saying to me in my electorate. They know their mortgages, their rents, their groceries are higher now under Labor than they were. And if we look just, for example, at some basic food and grocery items, Deputy Speaker, eggs are up by 22%. Milk costs 19% more. Breads and cereals are up by more than 20%. Vegetable oil, 28%. Pet food, 16%. Chicken is up 10%. Cheese is up by 23%. And if you want to get a takeaway meal, that's now costing 15% more than it was over 2 years ago. And this is what the Labor government has delivered for Australians in 2 years. And, Deputy Speaker, across my electorate of Hughes in southern Sydney and beyond into neighbouring south-western Sydney, from Illawong to Ingleburn, from Bonnet Bay to Bangor to Bundeena, Heathcote to Hammondville, Moorebank to Macquarie Fields, Australians know it. They're paying more for their mortgages, they're paying more for their rent, and they are paying far more each week for their groceries. Throughout the local government areas near me, Sutherland, Liverpool, Campbelltown, Australians are paying more, and the Reserve Bank has linked the inflation rate, the fact that Australians are paying more, to this government's overspending. For the government to continue maintaining that this is due to global circumstances has been flatly denied by the Reserve Bank this week. All Australians, those in my electorate, those throughout our country, are paying the price of Labor's gross overspending and mismanagement of the economy. Australians deserve far better than this Labor government. Thank you.